Hello, people. Are we ready for chapter 6? My dad's life story continues. Those who are following this story, thank you very much. I love you. And those who are in the know already, today we are doing a return. We are detouring back because we are at a junction where everything seems to be like on the rise. Kyentegeeza nti nga taata wange kati atandise okuvuga ekintu. Okay, I've had access to some information to do with the Church Missionary Society, Abaminsani, in 1960. Are we there? The Kabaka Frederick Mutesa celebrates his 36th birthday at Namirembe Cathedral. My dad is 13 years old. Kati, what I'm finding out is that having been raised under Abaminsani, the missionaries, nagala mutegeere ekintu ekyo, they were instilling discipline. They were instilling values in many of these children who were in the system of the Church Missionary Society. That is explained by the fact, because you would ask me, how does your dad end up under the Church Missionary Society? Nabagamba ekintu ekyo nti my grandmother had my dad when she was very young. She was just coming of age. Kyentegeeza yali mwana muto. Kakati bw'azaala omwana oyo taata wange ne bamumutwalako Abaminsani. Are we together? We are talking of 1947. 1947, Uganda was still under the colonial, the protectorate and everything. So his early childhood is shaped along those lines. Kakati, when my grandmother marries my grandfather, there was a secret. Waliwo ekyama kye bayita omwana mujja na nnyina, and the only one who knew the secret was my grandmother. Nti yamusiba omwana yamusiba musisi. Yes, my grandfather and the father of my dad had been seeing the same girl. Bino movie manyi, teenage romance, whatever, nebibeerawo. But my grandfather goes to war, or whatever was going on at that time. Kati bw'akomawo, my grandmother ng'amugamba nti olina ki wandekamu olubuto, so you left me pregnant and then I had a child for you. This gets conflicting. This gets very interesting. By the time my grandmother moves in with my grandfather, in quotes, my dad already ngali mu Baminsani yali amututte. My dad was already under the Church Missionary as a young kid. I want you to get this, we get it out of the way, because it is going to determine whatever happens next, and it's going to shape my dad's future henceforth. I have the picture, my dad and my grandmother seated outside the church Yabaminsani. And that I think is the day they take my dad to start staying with the father, the new father, in quote unquote, or whatever, with the father. Kati taata wange n'asomera muki mu foundation eyo, St. Paul's Church ey'ekitagobwa yali under Church Missionary Society. Waliwo Abaminsani. From there he goes to Wampeewo. Are we together there? Wampeo's Kati, that is where he meets the Mr. Uncle Patrick Chiwanuka Express. That's where he meets a lot of people. But James Sekamate, bani bonna abavubuka abaaliwo ebiseera eyo ekitagobwa bonna abaali mu generation ya taata wange. Era bonna nga bagamba ekintu kimu nti Kyanda yali azannya nnyo akapiira. He was very good in football. So while at Wampeewo n'afuna sikaala oba basabe ebiseera ebyo emutwala Mengo Senior School, the first senior school in Uganda, founded in 1895. Are we together? So, 1960, what is happening in Uganda? The Kabaka is celebrating his 36th birthday. So they get together, the young kids. Of course, you have to have been some good kid, or you're good at something, you're excelling at something. Kakati, ne babaleeta ennamirembe ne bakuba engoma. There was a very big occasion at Namirembe Cathedral, and in attendance, my dad is one of the kids who are drumming. 13-year-old or achali Wampeewo. So what I'm trying to tell you here, that the foundation upon which everything was being based now was more to do with the interconnections of things. The question would be, how did my dad end up in Mengo? Asome n'abaana b'abalangira, asome n'abaana b'abaki? Did you get me? That is 1960. Era n'ayingira Mengo Senior School, 1965. Ye class gy'amalirako Mengo. While in Mengo, he is appointed the head prefect. So you can see where we are coming from. So you already know the story. While he's at Mengo, n'azannya nnyo akapiira nti ne bwe kyatuka ku mipiira gy'amasaza, there used to be like a league, the Kabaka's Cup, something along those lines. And every saza, every kind of county would play against each other, or clans, something like that. But what is told is that my dad stood out. How? He scored the winning goal against the Kabaka's team, and that puts him on the pedestal of attention. And by independence, let's go back a little bit here. In 1962, I've already said this in the previous chapters, there was the first Cranes team, the young Cranes. There was a football league or football tournament that was organized in preparation for the Independence Day in 1962. Mo junior team yali selected because they had to put together an outfit that would play, kind of commemorating, celebrating and all that. My dad was selected. So that means his football career was standing out. His football career was taking off. And upon that, he joins Mengo Senior School. At that point, are we together? He's 13 years old in 1962. 63, 64, 65. Those are 3 years in between. You get me? He's 16, 17. At 65, he graduates or he finishes school at Mengo with a scholarship to go to Bukalasa Agricultural College. Kati kyesaababuulira oba kyemmanyi already kyemuyinza okutegeera nti post independence there is the urge to get the young elites, abaana abato, nga babagaidinga bayingire system. Munfuna bulungi nnyo abaana abasomye nga balina background. Back in the day, education was a privilege. Yalinga bweti omwana wani, who's who. You had to be a who's who to have that privilege to join the education system. And post-independence, I think my dad was well positioned and in a better place to either relinquish the football career and pursue an educational career, which was it was an obvious thing. It was very obvious. He had no trump card. His background wasn't into mtata wange aina an upper hand or like a hand up. No. Sibwe kiri. Naye ate mwana muto. Nga mwana muto. Ali mu bantu, abantu bamwagala ate akola ebintu abantu bye baagala. That is 1965. So, by 1965, he's already known to the Kabaka. 66, we have the constitutional crisis, which meant that the Kabaka, his friend, loses his kingdom, and he comes here to the United Kingdom. I remember him reminiscing on those days, because you remember football is a game, and if it's obvious that the king loved football, definitely he was playing with teammates, friends, and everything. So 66, 67, by 68 my dad is finishing at Mukalasa. Olwo agenda kuyingira ebya cooperative. Waka tulenze okuda n'abuuza nagana your dad isn't a mulangira. Your dad isn't this. He didn't have to be anything. All he had with him was the talent to play football. All he had with him was the fact that there was a family secret. Ate no secret egenda kukomawo many years later, in 1990, when he passes away. I told you this, that my dad had written a will in 1984. That will, I've never seen such a will. It had in so many things. Houses here, land here, houses there, a farm here, a farm there, cars, everything, all bequeathed to my mom. That is his first will in 1984. How old was he in 1984, my dad? Well, I think he was 30. He must have been 30. 34? Something like that. Then in 1990, when he falls ill, critically ill, he was bedridden, he goes to Chitagobwa to stay with my grandmother. He writes a will, a written will, handwritten, exposing the secrets he knew growing up. And that is going to come later on. There are the ramifications of that are going to have a very catastrophic impact on our family. Bintu biwanvu nnyo byalina mawulire mu 1994. We shall get to that chapter. We are still around in 1970, because after the wedding of 1972, we are going to nosedive into what really transpires in the 70s and how he really goes big. Naye ate ekikwewuunyisa, all this he was achieving but behind the background ye teyagalanga nnyo kubeera nnyo on the front line of things. Okiraba ate kati bwemulaba mukwano gwe mulwana gwe ate gwe baakolanga naye very quiet people nga basirifu nnyo abantu bawuliranga Kyanda omugagga sijui Kyanda alina omukyala omulungi Kyanda. My mom was very young. Okiraba. Okay, let's go back to 1968-69 when my dad finishes. When he finishes his studies at Bukalasa Agricultural College, he lands his first job straight up. There was this unrest following the Common Man's Charter. The Common Man's Charter was a dossier of things that the president was driving at. Uganda was headed towards a communist country. Do you know what communism is? You commune the countries, everything is one thing. One thing for all. So it literally becomes a one-party system. Ochiraba? Kati, better placed was to get all these young people and put them in positions. Ochiraba? Kati ngena bayetira Kyanda Research Station eyo, Kyanda Research Station, Namuronge Agricultural Farm, Kabanyoro Farm, ebyo byonna byali mu muzeeyi wange nga babisomye ewa e Bukalasa. Uganda Ranchers Scheme bingi nnyo bye mugenda okuyiga nti behind the veneer of everything that was happening in Uganda, it was a construction of things. Nabagamba last week nti ekintu ky'abakomunisiti kyaliwo ekiti bakola ebintu bye bayita grandioso. Do you know what I mean? A grandioso thing is you do a statement of things. Kakati, let's not go far. Mulaba Bugolobi Flats, eyo nayo yali template ya Yobote, ebyo nabyo naamenya bisangawo. Embaga ya tata wange yali ku Silver Springs e Bugolobi. Behind where the wedding was, down in the gardens behind nga Abayisiraeli bazimba. It was an Israeli company. I don't know how he was looking up at things that were like behind, but that is in 1972. Era project Abayisiraeli bagiddukamu ne bagireka ya Bugolobi Flats. Uganda Commercial Bank, Communications House, ekyo nakyo bakireka ngayo bakireka ne bakimaliza luvannyuma nnyo. Of course nabagamba gondi the Mango Growers Union HQ, the tall building okuli Victoria University. So nga babateeka mu ssente empitirivu ennyo kiraba bazimbe ekintu ekyo 68 69 70. Let's go back. So he was around 21, 22, 23. N'akyakala nnyo n'anyumirwa obulamu mu Kampala awo. Be bamu abaasooka okuvuga emmotoka abaana ab'obuvubuka. Bazimba mayumba, bakwataganye nayo n'omwami yani ono Mukalazi Construction yava dda nga yazimbira abagagga amayumba gaabwe ag'abakyala baabwe. Bakwananga omusajja yakwananga omukazi n'amuwa nnyumba na kisumuluzo nti nfunirayo kuzimbira ennyumba. That is how arrogant, with the bravado they had. So by 1970, things are different. My dad has given up his football career. Omupiira yaguleka ne batandika okukola. He was working as a principal financial auditor. Do you know what auditing means? It involves finance, it involves money. Okay? Maybe I'll begin the mass with what you get last week. Pop Najja, 1969, a Uganda. Pop. Then nekira kye twayogerako last week, Obote is almost assassinated during a youth wingers conference. Kati eyo nalina ebyaba youth winger Obote abireeta atandiko okuyingiza ate breed endala, bakadeyideyi bano abaana bakuba ekintu kati amaze okufuna abaana abali elite. Nagala mutunuulya cabinet ya 1965-66 eya Uganda. Bonna baali baana bato, nga bali mu 20s. Kiraba kati okay, ebyennaku nabyo byaliwo, kabaka taliiwo, n'ebitandika okukyuka byali bingi, bitandika okukyuka. So more or less things are like the way they are. Nfuna bulungi nnyo, naye nga the precursor to all this, we're looking at my dad in 1960. In 1960, as a 13-year-old, by 1970, as a 23-year-old, they are two different people. So at the time, he's dating one of the most beautiful women in Kampala. I told you about that. It was the Miss Uganda beauty pageant. And of course, from my knowledge and understanding, usually all the participants anyway, they are all winners. They have never been Miss Gold, Miss this, Miss this, Miss this, Miss this. Although, of course, the contest wasn't won by the so-called Cecilia Ogwal. I've got the facts on that. Eyawangula contest yalimu olukyotala. Ate contest, of course, at that time, byalimu abazungu, byalimu n'aba Asians, abayindi. Naye nga kati ate waliwo ne skande endala. Skande eyo sijja gigendamu for the respect of the kabaka. Skando yali mpanvu nnyo. Mubimanyi bino, bibeerawo. Who saved the day? And in 1966, kabaka aba agenda mu America, ajja wano, is abdicating. Now, you know. Naye ate kirabika muzeeyi wange yali abimanyi, naye kakati ebintu bibeerawo tubirekere tutyo. Mukyala yaliyo, but of course that didn't raise flags. Naye nga kabaka yalina omukyala gwe yali ayagala musaako za muzeeyi wange. Let's leave that there. Yeah. So at that time, I think ku byali bigenda mu maaso, the kabaka wasn't a happy man, not mu bulamu bwe nga kabaka, ku byali bigenda mu maaso politically, nti he at some point was disillusioned by being a president. He didn't see his powers. He didn't have that mandate. Bamuzanya akazannyo, bamutadde mu bya ceremonial, batadde bitya. And later on he could see what was coming. Kiraba, the power had shifted, the power dynamics. Munfuna bulungi nnyo. So I will leave that one there because it is declassified information. No, nakagifuna leero, ngifunye leero. And najja era ndani wano, tugambi najja ku asylum. That's the story. He had to seek asylum, protection here. Kubanga yali adduse Uganda for his life. The attack on the Lubiri in 1966 was led by Idi Amin, sent in by Obote. You remember there was the alliance. The Kabaka has his party, KY, Kabaka Yeka, and UPC, Uganda People's Congress. The alliance prior to independence, so they were disagreeing and agreeing on so many things where the country and its direction was. Kakati bano young elites abaana abato bagenda kubeera caught in the crossfire of things. Ekintu nga kidde eno. You had the power shift from Mengo, then the power shift in the parliament, then you had the pigeonhole constitution. So amidst all that that was going on, my dad was in the thick of things. Kiraba kati oba olina okwenoonya. So by 1970s you begin to see the shaking off of the elites nga balaba ensi tetambula nga bweyina kutambula oba ensi eri on the doldrums, ekintu kyesuula bwesuubi. So that meant that when Obote is overthrown, the power play had shifted. Chovola bano bonna abavubuka baagaggawala mangu. They went into private business. They went into ventures, joint ventures. They went into partnerships. They went into so many things. Bagamba nti abantu bafuna ebintu by'abayindi. No, ekyo kirala nnyo. Kukyentegera right now nti I think the booty or the loot, ebintu batwala sente zaabwe, apart from gamba nti ebizimbe ebyasigala byonna yabiwa abasirikale ebyo. He rewarded his henchmen. Kiraba kati embaga y'omu 1972 ya muzeeyi wange yagiwulira. Word went round, word reverberated nti waliwo omugagga akoze embaga egenda maaso, because Kampala Road bagitimba yonna, courtesy of the new mayor at the time, Walusimbi Mpanga, KCC, Kampala City Council. And that is going to play another role in my dad's life. Nga joining patron supporters aba KCC. Ekintu ekyo nakibagambye this week. I found out kati omupiira guyingira, but behind the scenes era nakolera KCC balina ebidandi sali oyo. I wish I could talk to bidandi sali one day tunyumye emboozi, because it features a lot n'ebifaananyi byaffe awaka. Even later on bwe tunakwata ku gundi ku billionaire syndicate ey'omu 80s ne mbagamba nti nno sente za muzeeyi wange nyingi nnyo ziri mu lutalo lwa Museveni. Yes, it's unfortunate bo baali bayagala ensi ekyuke etereere, and they didn't have anything to gain. Baali tebalina kye banoonya. He took ill and died in 1990. Okiraba? He took ill. Kati today, let's go back. Okiraba? Kakati ba youth wing baani ba UPC. It was like tubayite nga bagoons, omanyi bo baali nga ku kyalo ne ku kyebanda okuzijukira nakula tubawulira mu 80s, naye we are going back in the 70s or in the early 60s. The whole structure of UPC now is taking hold of the country. Nga bamaze okujjako kabaka, then Uganda becomes a republic. Kati kyembuuza, the question would be at independence, what were we? Ensi Uganda yali esigadde etya? Ask yourself that question as well. Abazungu baatutuuza mu kintu ekyali, it was a double whammy, because Kabaka's powers were limited, but he was the president, presiding over what? His kingdom or the country. And then you had the prime minister and the cabinet with the parliament. And then you had the Luchiko, the Bulange, where it was a shenanigan. It was a giant. It was bound to fail. So 1969 is coming to the end. Munfuna bulungi nnyo. UPC yeri mu kintu kati amena ku introducing Uncle Paulo, Uncle Paul. At the time is serving as an ambassador in diplomatic service, but prior to that yari akoze mu post office, telecoms and everything. Kati obote akwataganya n'abantu kati bwengenda okuyita ba henchmen ofuna ba henchmen. Uncle Paul ali mukwano gwa muzee wange nnyo, bali ba neighbors baffe, we were neighbors ne Kiseka, Simpson Kiseka, amanya mangi nnyo ogenja obbawa Upper Manda Road kubanga mama wange yasookako ku Manda Road, oluguudo oluva ku poliisi olwambuka ffe twalusenda. That road should be named Kyanda Road. That road which connects to the Akibua Tafenol Drive, John Akibua 1972 awangula Munich, the Munich Olympics. I even know it's going to begin. I went to school with the children. Tony Akibua was in my class at Buganda Road. I think the sister Tonia was in the lower class. Yarina sister wange. Yeah. My dad is in love with a very beautiful woman in Uganda. And I think that set off alarm bells into you need to slow down. But 23 years old, how do you slow down when you're going out with a very, very beautiful woman? Amukoledde ebintu ebirungi ennyo, amuzimbidde ennyumba ziri awo najja nankumbi awo sijja babuulira bingi nnyo, but ku Kate Farao siji noyambuka waggulu twagendayo nkyajali akadiye naye nga yayagala Kyanda n'ensi neewuuguma nalulungi. Mukyala bamuyitanga Joy Ruth, era ali mu bifaananyi ebya family archives with the names behind Ruth Kyanda. So by 1971 bajjako Obote ali mu Commonwealth Conference Singapore. Ensi egenda kukyuka vis-a-vis the fact that everything he had set in motion. Kyobula ndowooza Obote kyamuluma nnyo ng'alaba alina okukomawo ensi ye, ekintu yali akikubyeko stamp bw'ati ate ne Kabaka ng'afudde yandibadde nga enemewe. Can you imagine ebya Kabaka okufiira era biwanvu yafiira wano London. So he was in a very, very good place nga amanyi n'alyoka akola conference endala. Obote akola conference y'amaanyi nnyo n'ayita ba mwalimu Julius Nyerere, n'ayita ow'e Mozambique, bino mu Fronasa later on Museveni bibaagendamu, naye kati I think that is where the connection comes in. Museveni bw'ayingira ekintu ekino kyayogerako all the time. It has been in a freedom fighter since 1970s. I speculate awo agendere Mozambique. Yes, Fronasa. Munfuna bulungi nnyo. Olwo ali Dar es Salaam, ani amutwala Dar es Salaam kanti kino kiri this class. This is declassified information from Makerere University. Museveni ng'asaba ekifo Makerere ng'amaze okusoma, yali ku basale era ekyo akyogera nnyo, ne bamumma ekifo. Reason, teyalina 10 graduate tax books. Kati ebiseera ebyo waalingawo system. I think the who is who bw'otaba mwana waani. Kati Museveni nga talina ebibali eba etikiti z'omusolo 10 is entry requirement to Makerere. Yali asomye bulungi nnyo ne bamumma ekifo. kati bamumma ekifo n'azzaayo ne bamugamba awandika ebbaluwa ne biddayo back to back nga registro ye Makerere tajja muwa kifo era eventually tebamuwa kifo era Obote that is how the system was. It was on merit. Kakati Obote ng'awandiikira ani Julius Nyerere nti ninaana abaana benjagala owa ebifo. Obote nyine himself. That means amicably Obote and Museveni were in the same book. Bali ku page emu bintu bingi naye muvubuka kyembagamba it is the same mirror example ya taata wange nti he had this access nti the Kabaka himself could write a scholarship gyagende Bukalasa okiraba asomere Bukalasa kati Museveni gagende egonde Dar es Salaam gasoma yasomera ddala yebagamba nti Museveni tasomako Museveni yasoma kakati olwo ng'ali mu bitabo byani by'Obote 1971 ekintu nga kiyiika ani amuggyako Idi Amin yali mu magye kiraba Idi Amin yali mu magye kyova ne Museveni amagye agaagala nnyo yali agategedde bulungi nnyo nti kibeera within ekintu bakubira within right hand man we command of the armed forces yajjako ki kati awo ndowooza Museveni ebyokusoma nebyeyongerayo we byakoma akomawo mu 79 he appears on the scene emosh ayina Paulo Muwanga nebani kikosi Maligundi there was something going on there ebyo kati nayo bidala naye nga byalimu abaali babivuga nti bakomewo ki Obote. That was a trump card and that would explain many other questions people have nti how did Museveni become the Minister of Defense mu 1980 awo tugenda kutuukawo ffe twadduka twali mu exile bajjako Amini ffe tudduse tuli Kenya bakutte Lule yali Professor Makerere ani yamuleeta Binaisa awona Binaisa was also a family friend of ours kati kyembagamba nti bano bayange elites abagaggawadde baakava mu ssomero baana bato balabye ebintu by'Obote byalimu nga tebina we biyita bajja kunyweza ensi bagitereeze kati the most difficult time was the 70s from 71 to 79 was a lynch pin nkyalinga ekisibya ensi kiraba nze I have the argument quote unquote nti that era wasn't about what you can glorify nti yakola kino yasangawo template gye yali atambulirako but everything was in motion okiraba and every attempt now was being made from outside to destabilize era yaitajja kumalako. So as we finish the video I want to leapfrog forward a bit. What is going to be the outcome of that wedding of my dad in 1972? Agenda kukwata template y'embaga eyo naye awase Sarah Amini yalina abakyala babalala bameeyi bakei baani bonna abo naye lwaki kino akijjayo ku OAU summit kati Uganda eri caught up mu bintu bingi nnyo. Syria, Israeli, Yasser Arafat, Palestine, bingi nnyo byayingiramu. Era kyova olaba kyali kyangu nnyo okumuoverthrowinga mu 79 olutalo lwava Tanzania. Naye prior to that, he had clashed with many East African leaders ku East African community. Kiraba East African community kintu Obote naye yali akivuze nga akituuzizza mu bonna. Ne Nyerere Kenya naye yali kirimu naye nga tekirimu nnyo because Jomo Kenyatta teyali musajja mwangu nnyo. He was very much ye yali alwanya olutalo lwa independence ng'amanyi ebikirimu. The art of war. He had fought a war. The Mau Mau rebellion. So in 67 they found the East African community. Naye by 1977 nga kiyise. Naye ate 2 years before that we have the Organization of African Unity Conference held in 1975 in Kampala. Obote teyaliiwo. Kiraba kati kyekimu ekigenda okuexplaininga okuzza enjole ekigenda okuzza to bring back ekyo nakyo kirimu connotations zaakyo. You had many loyalists, abaana abaali babelievingira mu Mengo, not nti nti ennono. No, the Kabaka had been surrounded by very many young elites. Bye yali asomye nabo, bye yali akuze nabo, bali mu mipiira, and it was a deserving thing, honorably, that the Kabaka's remains should be returned. Kakati ekyo gundi n'akisiizinga. Idi Amin, mubimanyi bino ebintu bya politics, you seize an opportunity and you kind of make it yours. Era ne mubifaananyi Mutebi, the king right now, yali ali wano yakomawo. Kiraba naye kati bigenda kujja mu 70s. We have ironed out the 1960s and the junction of 1968, 69 and 70, 71. Nagala next week tukube embaga eyo tuyigire 70 era yonna tugitwale paka mu 80, paka mu 1980. Are you with me, people? And the story is so sweet. Nti ebintu binene byefindings out n'abampa information eno bangamba naye musajja gwe, this is a long story, you need to add in a lot of things as well, nothing to be referenced. Kayita bwotyo. Kiraba kati ze mu 72 my mom is pregnant. Mukimanyi ekyo. It was a whirlwind romance. There was no way my dad was going to marry my mom. Yali mwana muto. Kiraba Uncle Patrick na insist n'amagamba Kyanda ono omukazi bajja mukubbako already olwanya entalo nnyingi nnyo. Waliwo olutalo lwe sinnababuulira olwali mu Suzaana. Waliwo minisita eyali ayagala Nalulungi ono ng'ate musajja mukuluko ku tata wange, naye tata wange ng'alina ssente. So bingi nnyo. So the events kind of brought things to where they would have been. Kubanga tiri mama wange naye despite the fact nti yali mwana muto yajja ne she comes of age. Omanya kintu okublosominga abantu baayagala maama wange nga buli musajja yenna bagamba Simpson omukazi mulungi nnyo Simpson alina enviri zikomeno eyo story agenda kujja you know what I mean ate bwe yanzaala ne bakola pate Kyanda azadde omusika Kyanda suji akoze bitya omwana amufaanana nnyo bitayi byonna kiraba maama wange namuwa faamu tata we nakulira maama wange chairman of mixed farm namuwa faamu kati olwo ng'aliko waka because yatuzaala mangu naye ati nga alina okuddayo asome you get me byebyo tunyumyako ebyo weebityo yemboozi so oli bwaddaawo n'agamba nti I should dwell on the future yeyadda kiju yakomenti nga byatamanyi kiraba abantu gye tuli nga tulina history they can write a full book about the Kyanda family and the dynasty kiraba so era neŋŋamba nti I took offense of that you know I was very much offended kuba omuntu tasobola kuŋŋamba nti amanyi future yange katamanyi nange ebintu byenkoze I've done a lot of good things for people nange nenekolera ebintu ebirungi ebyange olinaga kati oyinza okugaa nti Kego what are you doing in London tamanyi lwaki ndi London eno najja kusoma nsomye nkoze buli kimu kyenjagala ekirungi ennyo ntambudde ensi zonna neeyagadde nkoze buli kimu n'omukazi omulungi ng'oddaawo ng'oneesimbamu I don't level with the people who are not my level era emikwano gye nnina byena mbiraga n'abantu nabewunya tulinayo mukwano gwo yes that's how I was brought up in a very very reputable family background era ebyo ebisinga okunyiiza abantu naye nze sinyiiga I'm a happy go lucky dude so kakati next week sharpen your thoughts nawe nkonyeka kubanga kati President Museveni yajjako ne ku faamu yaffe namulabako yajja balina ye baaliko balina bamuzeeyi baffe that is in 1985 kabaka olwakomawo 85 tuli wa Uncle Patrick ne bagenda eruweera eyo omuzeeyi wange antwalirako nange kid bwe nti ndi mwana mutandika mu Benz mu 85 June it was around June May time olutalo nga lugenda mu maaso olutalo lwali lw'amaanyi nnyo Masuuliita ku faamu yaffe ekapeeka otuuka ekakiri n'okkirira munda n'ovuga munda ku kidda wayitangawo ne baasi ya UTC ng'eyitawo kati mu faamu yaffe egenda paka Masuuliita Semuto UTC Kulubya UTC yali musaliza Kulubya Uganda Transport Company Uncle Kulubya naye yalina faamu y'amaanyi nnyo munda naye wali it was a battlefield olutalo lwali lugenda maaso mu 80s kiraba so byebyo byennyinza okugamba nti nno biri relevant today banga kati olutalo oluleeta Museveni temulumanyi yes ye yakola honors n'awandiika sowing the mustard seed nakasoma akatabaako era bina byawandiika ne mu revised edition n'ayongeramu n'ebirala munfuna bulungi nnyo naye olutalo lweruweero na Masuuliita ekapeeka my the Namugongo killing the Namugongo massacre Obote nga ekintu kimunyize Obote teyeebaka Obote yali mu hoteri yeesibidde mu Nairo mansion yafuga emyaka 5 ng'ali ku whisky teyeebaka n'alwala nakaawo naina Uncle Paulo babinyumyanga mu nnyumba Uncle Paulo Mwanga ne muzeeyi wange batudde awo bali ku whisky banywanga VAT 69 gwe mwenge gwe banywanga abagagga nga guva eno London scotch whiskey vat n'ekitupa bagitanga grants zipates ezabeeranga awaka. Tujja kunyumya ne kuba bishop awo bonna baddungu, bishop Nsubuga bonna n'ennamirembe awo n'ebyaliwo n'ebyaluumu. Do you know that Bishop Luumu yagatta taata wange ku wedding? Yes, yabagatta ku wedding 72. Yes. Nabagamba ne Idi Amin yajja. Yajja ku reception. No, yajja ebweru. Ajja ebweru ku church. I mean could turn up anywhere. Then later on najja ku Silver Springs. Okay? Pretty good. Pretty good. Embozi njagibawa in a story nkoze research. Ali very extensive. Nkoze research. Ali exhaustive. And we are going to have a very good conversation in chapter 7. Okay?